So question 35 uses the same relationship three times. If you look at each of these, they all have in common that there's a distance being traveled and there is a rate of travel or speed, and then there's also amount of time that the traveling occurred in. And the relationship between those three variables, it's a pretty common to be aware of this, and it's kind of intuitive too, right? The distance traveled equals the rate that you're traveling times how long you're traveling at that speed. So it's kind of if you ever forget this relationship, it's kind of easy to like recreate that, reconstruct it. Um, so for example, if you were traveling at 60 miles per hour for 2 hours, right? 60 miles per hour for each of those hours, you know that you traveled 120 miles, right? So you can see that and verify, oh yeah, distance does equal rate times time. Now, depending on the problem you're solving, I typically like to just write this and then, and then solve for the variable that I need. But you can write different forms of it as well. But we'll just go ahead and write d equals rt and work with that. So just three quick examples here. Morgan decided to take her bike ride before it got too hot. She left the campsite and rode her bike at a speed of 16 miles per hour. So you can see here is her rate. This is R. And she did so for a total of 1.5 hours, right? That's the amount of time. So how far did she ride the bike? Well, the distance traveled equals the rate that you're traveling at times the amount of time that you're traveling at that rate. So here we have distance equals 16 miles per hour for 1.5 hours, which is 16 plus another 8. So that gives us 24, right? 16 plus half of 16 is 24. So she traveled for a total distance, right? Her distance was 24 miles. And you can look at the dimensional analysis too. For example, if you look at 16 miles per hour, and you multiply that by a certain number of hours, notice that the units, the hours over hours cancel. That forms a giant 1, and you are left with a miles. But that's just kind of an aside. So let's look at B. Morgan's dad went to get groceries at the campsite store at the bottom of the mountain. He drove 20 miles per hour for zero point 0.4 hours. So pretty much the same thing in part B, right? He's traveling at 20 miles per hour for 4/10 of an hour. The question is, how far did he drive? What's the distance to the camp store? Well, I know that 2 times 4 is 8, but I've got a decimal in there. So 2 times 0.4, the distance is, it's not 80 miles, it would be 8 miles. Yeah, because 20 times 0.4 would be, 20 times 4 would be 80, but I've got to move the decimal over one in my answer. And you can, use a computational device if you'd like to verify that. But 20 times 0.4 is 8. And again, these are distances in miles because the units, my speed was given in miles per hour, and when you multiply miles per hour times hours, you end up with just miles. And then finally, when Morgan's dad returned from the store, he went for a jog. He jogged 1.5 hours, or no, he jogged 1 hour and 15 minutes at a pace of 4.8 miles per hour. How far did he jog? So on C, that they're still asking for the distance traveled, right? But he is, let's see, he's traveling at a pace of 4.8 miles per hour. So that's where my rate goes, 4.8 miles per hour. And he does so for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Well, you know that 15 minutes, right, in terms of an hour, 15 minutes is 1/4 of an hour. And if you're not sure of that, you could use dimensional analysis, right? 15 minutes. If I multiply that by the fact that there are, let's see, 1 hour, H-O-U-R, 1 hour contains 60 minutes, right? You can see M-I-N. If I do my canceling here, I've got minutes over minutes. So this would leave me with hours, and what do I do to get it? Well, it's 15 over 60, which reduces to 1/4. So it's 1/4 of an hour, or 0.25. That's the part of an hour that 15 minutes represents. So he jogged at this rate of 4.8 miles per hour for 1.25 uh, 1.25 hours, right? 1 1/4 hours. And when I do that multiplication, I got the answer was 6. So the distance traveled was 6 miles. And again, if you're multiplying miles times miles per hour, um, oh, no, I'm sorry, I have that completely backwards here. This speed was 4.8 miles per hour, and you're multiplying that by 1.25 hours. So when you do that multiplication, the hours cancel and you're left with miles. So the answer there is 6 miles.